My name is Carolyn Arida. I'm a managing director and I head the utility efforts for Harrison Street's infrastructure platform. Many institutions are very focused on continued resiliency efforts, solving their deferred maintenance challenges, and then working towards decarbonization goals and objectives. Many universities, healthcare systems, and governments have extensive deferred maintenance backlogs that they're looking to the private sector to support from a financial perspective to go ahead and renovate those facilities. And then what we're also seeing at the same time is these same institutions setting aggressive decarbonization goals and objectives, where they're looking to either become net zero carbon emissions over the course of the next 10 to 15 years, or meaningfully reduce their carbon emissions over that same period of time. And that requires a detailed master plan, but also financial backing to be able to deploy capital to make those projects happen.
Hello, my name is Jim Hennessy. I am also a managing director and head of PPP development at Harrison Street. And I would just add to that, specifically for higher education, universities are concerned about reputation, rankings, and brandings. And with tuition prices, going up significantly over the past, decade or so, universities are more focused on having the best and the newest buildings, new facilities on campus, whether it's a new academic building, whether it's a new residence hall, new stadium, or the newest research and innovation building on campus. And then the other point I would just add to that is, universities are realizing that students have a better college experience if they live on campus longer. So they get better grades, they graduate on time, but also in this era of anxiety, depression, especially with this demographic, universities are able to keep better tabs on students if they're having those types of health issues. So there's a drive for more beds and newer beds on campus based on some of those studies and some of the theses that are out there.
One of the biggest trends in the P3 sector has been an increased prevalence of district energy opportunities. The first large district energy P3 deal happened in 2017. And from there, you saw one or two trickle out the next couple of years. But since then, it's really increased in terms of interest from universities, given the deferred maintenance challenges and decarbonization objectives. And I think those have morphed in a way as well. They've gone from mostly focused on privatizing the existing set of assets and looking for an upfront payment to really looking for bespoke solutions based on the needs and objectives of that specific institution.
I would say partly, I think universities have gotten more comfortable with the PPP structure. I think initially there was a reluctance to transfer risk to the private sector when historically universities have been running and operating these campuses entirely themselves. I think, universities are starting to realize now that they could focus more on academia, their core mission, while transferring some of this risk to the private sector, whether it be district energy or, residence halls or so forth. And I would also add, there still seems to be a high barrier to entry in this sector. Even when universities issue an RFP in this sector, they require that you manage or operate a certain number of beds, which still limits the number of participants that have been able to be active in this segment for the last 5 years or so. So despite more P3 activity, there's less new players coming into the sector over the last few years.
The Inflation Reduction Act has certainly helped core renewables. And the area that we're seeing it be quite impactful beyond that is for other technologies and sectors. So from a heating and cooling perspective, we are seeing it used for geo-exchange projects and for trigeneration or cogeneration projects to support heating and cooling, and really more integrated types of systems where you have those components alongside some of your conventional renewables on site. The other impact is just the ease of leveraging those credits. So the ability to transfer the credits and also enable nonprofit institutions to use the direct pay mechanism is really making an impact.
I would just add another tailwind happening right now is the high interest rate environment. So for many years, universities were deciding between a tax exempt structure or doing a PPP with the private sector. And historically, with universities, especially top tier universities, the interest rates that they could borrow at was at a discount compared to what the return would be for a P3 structure. But lately in the last 18 months, as interest rates have risen dramatically, the economic difference between the two structures are basically the same or even more favorable for a P3 structure. So now universities are realizing financially it makes sense, but also I can transfer risk while keeping control on these types of assets to the private sector.
So I don't know that it's any one technology per se. I think the most exciting part is the integration of a variety of technologies on site and close to the end user. So probably one of the most exciting things is to walk around a college campus and assess what infrastructure do they have today, what natural resources do they have access to that perhaps they're not fully leveraging, and where are they trying to go? And then take that information and develop a master plan and figure out which technologies to integrate together into a single district energy system or a microgrid. So one of the projects that we're working on today that's really interesting combines geo exchange and wastewater heat recovery from a heating and cooling perspective, but then layers on top the clean energy needed to support those technologies through wind and solar, and then further builds with electric vehicle charging infrastructure. So I think what's really fascinating is watching all of those technologies come together to provide a holistic solution.
I think one of the lessons we've learned is the word social infrastructure means different things to different folks. I think where we meant it as social, and that's linked to these municipalities, universities, schools, or hospitals, what they call the MUSH segment. A lot of folks, especially in Europe, when they hear social housing means low income or public housing, and that's obviously not what is intended or what the general term is here in the U.S. So I think that was one of the lessons that we learned over the last few years. And then a second lesson, a notable lesson, is just the structuring of the PPPs we were able to structure them either off balance sheet or off credit for university partners, but the relationships, it takes a long time to collaborate with universities and structure these deals. And so players need to have, patience and understand that these relationships are going to take a longer period of time to get deals transacted.